Can psychological states influence our physical reality? Well, that's exactly what we're going to find out with Joseph Murphy's lecture, The Law of Inverse Transformation. So prepare your mind, because it's going to get very interesting.
A movie actor told me that he had very little education, but he had a dream as a boy of becoming a successful movie actor. Out in the field, mowing hay, driving the cows home, or even when milking them, he said, I would constantly imagine I saw my name in big lights at a large theater. Here's a man who didn't know anything at all about the laws of mind, yet he was using it. He was using the law. I kept this up, he said, for years, until finally I ran away from home. I got extra jobs in the motion picture field, and the day finally came when I saw my name in great big lights as I did when I was a boy. Then he added, I know the power of sustained imagination to bring success. So here's a boy mowing hay. He imagines his name in lights, you see, in a great theater. And he's living that role in his mind. It sinks down into his subconscious, becomes an impression. Whatever is impressed in the subconscious must be expressed as form, function, experience, and event. That's the great law of your mind.
Now, the important part that Joseph Murphy talked about was the fact that this actor imagined what he wanted with such intensity that he actually grew towards the realization of his own imaginary states. And you know, that is the beauty. That is something we can do ourselves. However, at first glance, we're raised with the idea that imagination is something that only is for little children. Like, if we think about imagination, we might go to watch all sorts of fairy tales, fantasies, absurd ideas. Well, at first glance, a lot of the things that we might imagine about might seem absurd. However, it is possible, it is a fact, that you can use your imagination to improve your life in the same manner. Now, how would you start? Where would you start? Well, let's look at this picture again that I got on the screen right now. I made it for you so you better understand the process all over again. It's a stick version. You're going to see it a lot of times in my videos, that's true. So if it seems repetitive, that picture particularly, it's for a reason, because it helps you to understand the process of your own consciousness better. That's the idea here. We're working with a picture, so it's easier to follow along, instead of you trying to figure it out somewhere in your own mind without a visual sort of representation of what it's all about. Alright, now so let's look at the picture again. Here we have this so-called stick version. You see those lines sticking out of that big circle in the middle that says your dream and strong desire for its realization? Well, you look at that picture and you see those lines sticking out. They represent your senses, your sensory factors. You can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Now, as I mentioned in previous videos and my audiobooks, most people are trained to live through the senses. I myself was trained to live through the senses. I mean, it only makes sense, because if you're a little baby, you can't think for yourself. You can't, survive. You need others around you, hopefully your parents, to make sure that you raise up well, that you can grow up well enough, I should say. Well, this is the problem. Because of that pattern that starts to develop right from the moment we're born, we're essentially already trained to live through the senses alone. Now, that's how we start looking for the answers and the solutions in our outside worlds. However, more often than not, we start to dream as we grow older. We get these desires for certain things that we want in our lives, but then because we're trained to look outside of ourselves to see whether we can get it or have it, and we don't see the evidence right away, well, then we start to doubt, and we want to stop doing that. This picture can help you understand it better, because what we are looking at right here is the concept that you can either live through your senses, or you can use your mind to build a clear mental picture of your dream, and then allow that dream to drive you towards new forms of action. Those actions will ultimately change the so-called results in your life. Now, as I said on the picture, the execution of your vision happens automatically once you have a clear idea of what you want and your desire for its realization is strong enough. Now that's interesting, all right? Let's look at it. Let's say you want to create more wealth for yourself. Most people would say, oh, I like that idea. I wouldn't mind more money in my bank account. Yeah, who doesn't mind that, right? I mean, here's the problem though. You can think about it, you're like, yeah, it would be cool, but do you desire to have it? Do you actually feel compelled to really put in everything you've got to make it happen? And when we talk about putting everything you got, we're not talking about working hard or stressing yourself out in order to get more money. What you want to realize is that this whole universe is made up of energy. This essentially means that if you can think about money, or if you imagine money in your bank account, that's already a form of energy. Since everything is energy, you see what I'm getting at? Maybe not. It means you already have it. How wild is that? I mean, this can really cause you to go kind of like, this guy must have lost his mind. That's what some people might think about my claim here. But stick with me. If you can imagine having something in your mind, and there's proof that others have applied this method and they created it in their worlds, it essentially meant they already had it on a so-called mental level. Like on a spiritual level, on an energetic level, they already have anything they want. You already have everything that you could ever desire to have. The problem though is that we don't believe that we have it. We look at lack and limitation and then decide to give that all our power, and therefore we cannot improve our lives because our attention is focused on the wrong thing.
"30 years ago, I knew a young pharmacist who was receiving $40 a week plus commission on sales. That was very good salary in those days. After 25 years, he said to me, I will get a pension and retire. I said to this young man, this was in New York, why don't you own your own store? Get out of this place. Raise your sights. Have a dream for your children. Maybe your son wants to be a doctor. Perhaps your daughter desires to be a great musician. Perhaps you would like to go to Europe to study under the great Carteau. His answer was that he had no money. He began to awaken to the fact that whatever he could conceive as true, he could give conception. I explained to him that money is a state, wealth is a state of consciousness, state of mind. Health is a state of mind. You have as much vitality as you've appropriated, much wisdom as you've appropriated, as much peace as you have appropriated. And you have as much wealth as you've established in your subconscious mind, because you must have the mental equivalent of anything you want in this life. A millionaire or a multimillionaire has the exact equivalent of that in his subconscious mind. The first step towards this man's goal was his awakening to the powers of his subconscious mind, which I briefly elaborated on for his benefit. His second step was his realization that if he could succeed in conveying an idea to his subconscious mind, the latter would somehow bring it to pass. He began to imagine that he was in his own store. Imagination is the keyboard to success, you know. The ancient Hebrews called it the workshop of God, because whatever you imagine and feel to be true comes to pass. He mentally arranged the bottles, dispensed prescriptions, and imagined several clerks in the store waiting on customers. He also visualized a big bank balance. Mentally he worked in that imaginary store. Here's a man getting $40 a week, but using his mind constructively. Like a good actor, he lived the role. Act as though I am and I will be. This pharmacist put himself wholeheartedly into the act, living, moving, and acting on the assumption that he owned the store. The sequel was interesting. He was discharged from his position. He found new employment with a large chain store, became manager, later on district manager. He saved enough money in 4 years to provide a down payment on a drugstore of his own. He called it his dream pharmacy. It was, he said, exactly the store I saw in my imagination. He became a recognized success in his chosen field and was happy doing what he loved to do.
You want to put your attention on your mental picture, on your vision, on where you want to go with your life. Now that is the beauty of these two examples that you heard here. from Joseph Murphy's lecture. These two examples clearly showed you, if you listen to it carefully, it clearly showed you what these people did was first imagine what it is that they wanted and allowed that imaginary state to sort of take hold of them, to almost become possessed by their own dreams. That's how I like to sort of coin it. I know the idea of possession might be a little dark for some people, but in this case we're doing it in a positive manner, okay? We're being possessed by our dreams. Now what happens if you do that? Well, you become compelled to make it happen for real. You see how subtle this is? It's such a subtle thing, this thing called imagination and our feelings, connecting them together. It's such a subtle thing that most people might miss. And that is also one of the reasons why most people cannot achieve their dreams. It's because they only think about it, but they're not emotionally involved in it. I already talked about that in my last vlog, so let's look at the picture again. You can see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Now, those senses can influence your conscious mind. So what happens then is you start building pictures, whether you realize it or not. You start building concepts automatically in your consciousness of limitation, of doubts, of worries, of fears. And that causes you to feel bad. You get anxious. You develop anxiety and depression, all sorts of negative states that we can emotionally experience, right? Now that then causes us to act in all sorts of negative ways that doesn't help us to get what we want. All right? So look at the picture again. You have your dream in your conscious mind. So the sensory factors, like it, I know this looks kind of weird, but they stick out in your conscious mind. You block those out. You block this world out that you're observing right now, and instead you develop a mental picture through your imagination of what you want instead. And you focus on that for 30 days. Try it out. See what happens. If you honestly make an endeavor to focus on your mental picture of what you want, it's like Joseph Murphy explained in his lectures, you will improve the quality of your life and get what you want. You'll be able to create what you want, because all of this is a process of creation. Your life right now is a creation of past thoughts and imaginary states. You might not realize that. You may have been doing it unconscious. For most people, we start out in an unconscious state. What these videos are trying to do for you is make you consciously aware of this power that resides within your mind. And once you do that, once you learn that, then you have the keys to the so-called kingdom of heaven. It is a true statement, the kingdom of heaven is within. Well, what does this kingdom of heaven mean to me? It means the imaginary realms of all possibility. And you can clearly see they exist within you. You don't look outside of yourself to some person to get them to imagine for you. No, you exercise your own imagination willfully and willingly. And that's how you can improve your life, by having a clear vision of where you're going with it. Now, so many people, they are very good at talking about what they don't want. Talking about what you don't want. It's so easy to talk about what we don't want. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever caught somebody saying something that they didn't want? They kept talking about what they didn't want in their lives. Maybe you're doing it yourself at times. Well, you want to become aware of that process and then stop it. Stop doing it. Start talking about what you do want. How do you do that? Well, you gotta have a clear idea of what you want. This is very, very important, because it might seem so obvious, and therefore you might brush it aside like, yeah, that makes sense, so I won't think about this any longer. And obviously you need to think about what I want. No, we want to become aware of when we are thinking about what we don't want, so we start to recognize the patterns inside our own consciousness, and then we can start to direct it with a purpose. Now, this all started for me way back in 2008. It actually started in the summer of 2007, but once I started taking these metaphysical studies serious, it was 2008. So at least 11 years ago by now for me. Now, I sat down at the lake over here and I started asking myself, if anything is possible to me, what do I really want? I really had to think about it. I couldn't make up my mind at all. It's such a huge question if you've never considered this. If all things are possible for you, which they are, well, what do you really want? And the problem we have in deciding on what we want is because of those limiting old patterns inside our consciousness that cause us to doubt before even setting the goal. We don't even believe we could achieve whatever we desire. to begin with. And these videos hopefully help you to change that around, to start believing in yourself and that you can achieve whatever you desire, because you have an imagination. An imagination, as Joseph Murphy so beautifully said, is the keyboard to success. It's like the workshop of God. These are terms that you really have to take serious, because they exist within your own consciousness. You should feel good about yourself, realizing you have this power within you that can help you achieve whatever you want. The only thing you need to do is develop the awareness of this power so you can start applying it, and then step by step, gradually, you'll start to improve your life according to this new level of awareness that you have developed by studying this material. Now, the law of inverse transformation clearly states, if physical facts can produce a psychological state, well then psychological states can produce physical facts. That's what this picture again shows you. You see, you have the senses. That is the process of how physical facts produce psychological states. Now, in order to change that around, as I said earlier, you have to start building a dream. Then a psychological state starts to influence the physical facts of your life. Really take it into consideration. This picture hopefully clears up how this lecture can help you in your own life, these ideas. And then hopefully I'll hear from you someday how you've applied this in your own world and made something beautiful happen for yourself. Because as long as you're alive, as long as you have the ability to think clearly for yourself, then you still have a chance at making your life absolutely incredible. Even if it would be a little short life left, so to speak, you can still make it absolutely incredible if you know how to work with your own imagination. Well, there you have it. This is part of the law of inverse transformation. These are ideas that you really, if you've never studied them before, well, obviously you really need to take your time to digest them, to really internalize these ideas so you get a better understanding what this could actually mean for the quality of your life. And it can mean wonderful things, I can promise you that much. So with that being said, always keep in mind, dear viewer, that we are the dreamers. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. And if you want to show your support, well, you can do that by sharing this video around with other people that might have use for it. And until then, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.